All right, have not fans. This is my third video in a row. I've already recorded videos about why was David so accepting when Jeffrey came out of the closet. Then the next video after that was, well, is Charles on the DL? And now to round things out, the question is David and Charles, are those two working together against Candace? Now, there have been plenty of people who have, brought this theory to me over the past year. I mean, Charles showed up at what? Season 4, episode 1, A Cup of Tea. This was back in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah. Dang, time flies on this show. Well, not on this show, but in real life. But in any case, well, there is time flies because technically a month had passed. Remember, in A Cup of Tea, and Chandler pointed this out to me, and then when I rewatched part of the episode before recording this video, I caught it as well. When Charles and David met in the lobby of the Artesian Hotel, he said, well, we don't know if we won the election yet. There's still 4 more weeks. And David's like, 4 weeks will fly by. And then we find out in the episode where Malik is stabbed by Hannah while RK and Candace wait in the van that Charles won the election. So I cannot believe a month had passed. Damn, time flies without us knowing about it. So in any case, looking at the actual show itself, I think that it actually is plausible that not only were Charles and David working or are working together against Candace, but Oscar might have been involved as well. And this is stemming from a live stream that Chandler and I did a couple days ago. And this was a in-depth live stream. Like, the more we talked, the more we thought of, hints and ways this could have went down. And I mentioned this in my other 2 videos, but just to say it one more time, episode 2 of season 1, Playing the Deep Ends, Amanda says, and this is in reference to finding out based off what Candace said, that Jeffrey's in the closet and he's uncomfortable about it. And then Amanda's like, wow, his mom, God, his father ran for office 2 years back on family values, completely opposed to gay marriage. In a town like this, that could get you elected. So that's pretty much, talking about the election that David tried to run for in office. But then we fast forward to season 4, episode 1, A Cup of Tea. We find out after Charles and David talked, he went over back to Erica. He's like, wait, you know Charles? He's like, well, several years ago, I ran for a Senate seat and I lost. He's a good guy. So we can almost assume that the same election that Amanda was referencing in regards to the anti-gay marriage proposal because of family values is also the same election that David lost when he ran against Charles for the Senate seat. So we can pretty much say that that's when those two formed a friendship. And just based off their interaction in A Cup of Tea, it seems clear that they are on very friendly terms despite David's losing. It's just like a respect as well as concern from for each other. Now, you're probably thinking, Jeremy, great stuff. I checked out your other 2 videos, but what does this have to do with Candace? It really goes back to one particular line after, David and Charles exchange sympathy for each other in regards to their wives. Apparently, Charles's wife recently died, whereas Charles found out based off the news that, David and Veronica were in the midst of a divorce. And then Charles looks at him and says, well, anything I could do for you? And then David says, when? When? Sorry, I've been doing David for the past 2 videos, so my David might not be on point like he usually is, but when? In reference to the election. But that doesn't mean that David wouldn't be able to call him up for a favor. And this is where Oscar comes into the picture, because of the fact that when Oscar first came up to Candace in regards to the whole Charles thing, it's like, look, I got some very important people who want to make sure that Charles loses, but I need your help to do so in order to get closer to him. And next thing you know, it's all about, well, Candace, you literally F things up when you tried to blackmail him on your own, meaning that you're worthless to me, and Oscar's pretty much done. But then next thing you know, they start talking again, and next thing you know, it's like, you know what, Oscar, I'm in. I want to do this, in reference to Candace taking this and running with it. I mean, we're talking potential 8 years in the White House, first lady status, appearances, book deals, and whatnot. You can make a fortune. And then, he eventually gets drugged and loses the money from Wyatt's inheritance. leading to yada yada yada, being pushed out of a window. But the thing about that shift, and I've talked about this a lot, I did not like how they wrote Oscar in his final season, and also the inconsistency. One moment is make Charles lose, then you stay with him, and then he runs for the next term and wins. Then it was all, okay, just roll with it. Charles wins, you're first lady, and that's it. But that doesn't make sense, because let's say if for whatever reason Candace and Charles get together and then she becomes first lady, where does that leave Oscar? Because that doesn't really do anything for him, because he was allegedly hired by some important people in order to make Charles lose. So if Charles win, he fails his job. One could assume, well, Jeremy, remember that big payout he was supposed to get for Wyatt's inheritance, which was like, what, 8.8 million? I forgot the exact amount, but he said his fee is like, what, 20% or something like that. So that would have been a big payout for him regardless. So one could argue that Oscar was the middleman in this situation. David pretty much replayed Oscar for the similar role of screwing Candace over, where if you look at season 3 when Oscar first came up, even though later we found that technically speaking Landon wasn't working for Oscar, but Oscar pretty much told Landon, hey, here's my website, show it to Candace. And that was at the bar, because remember, this is at a time where Oscar literally kept coming up to Candace saying, hey, I want to sleep with you. Oh, you're a prostitute. He was like $20,000 or $50,000 in cash. And then Candace is like, oh, you're not even aroused, after she put his hand on his lap. Wait, she put her hand on his like lap crotch area, and he wasn't even aroused. And Candace's like, I don't trust you. I don't trust this. And then next thing you know, he walks off. And I think this is like when Landon rolls up to him, is like, wait, what did you just do? That dude is like one of the biggest stockbrokers or something, and pretty much pulls up the website showing that he's a widower. He was on the track team or something like that when he was in school, and now he's definitely very wealthy, and he just blew him off, and not in the way he was hoping for. So that was later found out by Landon when he was being chokehold and pissed himself when Candace was on a witch hunt for Oscar, that he didn't pay me anything. He just told me to show you this website because Candace, he really liked you. That was it. So really, Landon is Oscar is the Landon in this situation, where what if David got Oscar to play a role in terms of being this person who is, I guess you could say, hired by these unknown powerful people who will pay a lot of money for Charles to lose. Anything to make Candace be turned on to Charles, to eventually lead to her downfall. And then when Oscar flipped the script saying, hey, you know what? Just be with him. You'll be first lady, and there'll be a big payout. I feel like that's the biggest piece of evidence. But things really took a downer when, Oscar was found dead and nobody really spoke of it again. I mean, Jim brought it up to David saying that, you got him to, help me out with getting the money. He screwed me over, and now he's dead, allegedly committed suicide. That doesn't sound like him. And hopefully we'll get investigation into this. But given the fact that, David's going to find out about the whole Erica situation, I don't see why the whole Oscar thing won't come up in a future episode, unless Oscar had nothing to do with this plan and he really is, in terms, dead and forgotten, even though I hope that's not the case. But David and Charles working together actually makes a lot of sense. But you can also make the argument, excuse me, I gotta move my legs, sitting Indian style like an idiot. A lot of people think, what's the motive, Jeremy? I mean, remember, Oscar got back the remaining $4 million that Candace had left that she didn't spend from like the tow yard and the 2 houses and the car and the clothes and whatnot. Why would David send somebody after Candace? Well, that's a good question. I honestly don't know. I mean, I literally did some research, and at that time, this was when David was first getting to know Erica, and way before she died, and way before where we are now, when David found out that Veronica was in on it, and allegedly Candace as well. And that's why he's asking Jeffrey, are you on speaking terms with Candace? Call her up and I need confirmation. So do you think it's possible that if David does get confirmation that Candace has something to do with the whole Erica thing, that maybe he'll call Charles to end things with Candace? Okay, now we're initiating the plan, pretty much making it so Candace is going to be in for a big fall, which is going to be the episode title of, or the episode synopsis of season 6, episode 1, if memory serves. I believe I think the first episode is called, or was it season 7? Either way, the episode was called like, "Are You Happy?" And it says karma finally catches up to Candace. So I think it is possible that, let's say David finds out Candace really has something to do with what happened with Erica, he's going to call up Charles, and that's when things are going to go straight to hell for Candace. That actually makes sense. Now, you might also think, well, Jeremy, this is the dude who's about to be the real president, and also the guy who's inviting Candace to go to the Oval Office with him to meet the president and first lady. Well, remember Oscar had Candace on that flight from Savannah all the way to New York to meet some, heavy big wigs in regards to the business world. Pretty much went on a carriage ride, went, to the theater and whatnot. So Charles could be laying it on thick in more ways than one. And then when the crumbling happens underneath Candace's heels, it's going to be one hell of a fall. I mean, not just with the whole, we saw how closed off she was after Oscar, but then on top of losing her son, if it turns out that Charles isn't who he says he is in regards to being infatuated with Candace, wanting her to be the first lady, and turns out to be another person to set Candace up thanks to David, I could not see any possible way of Candace ever opening up again unless she comes to know God. And that's in regards to God as opposed to a earthly man. So if Charles is not who he says he is, and it really is a plan orchestrated by David, bravo, one hell of a plan. But I do not see Candace trusting another man in her life ever again. That is going to be one hell of a downfall. So wow, this is definitely something to consider. A lot of things to rewatch in episodes, if you just want to rewatch a lot of Charles scenes, David scenes, because I'm thinking in my mind, I really don't know. Well, we did have that one scene between Candace and David. It was when Candace got out of jail, thanks to Charles and, Landon's team. Well, technically Charles's team. She was coming out of the jail, and David was going in pretty much, to check on Jeffrey, and they talked for a little bit, and I don't really recall what they were saying, which sucks. So let me pause this recording real quick. I want to go back to that episode, watch that clip, and see if there was anything of substance to this actual subject here. Well, yeah, looked at the episode every 6 months, episode 7 of season 4, but technically is listed as episode season 6 on Wikipedia. Yeah, those two had a exchange when Candace was coming out of jail. David was going in jail to help Jeffrey. David pretty much confronts Candace in terms of, look, you're the one that got my son mixed up with this whole Quincy Maxwell murder. Turn yourself in so Jeffrey can get out. But Candace isn't about to do that, and it's like, are you willing to let Jeffrey suffer in there and crumble and fall apart, get destroyed over something you did? Do you remember Oscar? And yeah, pretty much as a revenge ploy for David setting up Oscar and Candace's life to mess with her emotions and take her money, which was Jim's money, Candace is willing to let Jeffrey suffer in there. So David's like, well, have you really thought this through? The repercussions of what you're doing. Oh yes, I've thought about it. In biblical terms, pretty much, talking about biblical repercussions, which were pretty big. And I'm really thinking she's talking Old Testament. And then David just gives her a look as she's walking away, which hints at the fact that, number one, yeah, I actually do think that Charles might actually be somebody set up by David to be in Candace's life. Going even further back a season prior when it was David, Oscar, and Jim sitting at the bar at the Artesian Hotel, and they see Candace, and they're pretty much talking about things out loud in public settings that they shouldn't be, such as, Jennifer Salison, Quincy Maxwell, and, David's pretty much, talking about, the cops are looking for you for the Quincy Maxwell murder, and then, Candace takes a stab at, the fact that Jeffrey was involved, which takes David aback, and I do believe this was all before Charles came into the picture. Wait, no, it was after. But at the same time, maybe it was after that episode that Charles was somebody David put into Candace's life. So I think it is possible that David is pulling another Oscar. But in this case, it's not revenge about Jim's money or the inheritance money for Wyatt. It's the fact that I do believe that because Candace was willing to let David's son sit in jail for a crime he technically didn't commit, because Jeffrey was trying to help Candace. Because remember, he wanted to call the cops immediately after the whole Quincy thing, but Candace didn't want to do that. She literally took his phone and put it in the garbage disposal. I think it actually is possible that David is about to set this mother off. He even tells Candace way back in season 3, you know, when Candace was still on this whole, I'm going to go over to Jim's house and pay my condolences because of Amanda's death, which was one of the dumbest storylines for Candace ever, up there with the whole pimp thing. I think it is possible, because when you think of it this way, you know, Candace was indirectly responsible for Amanda's death. I mean, if you really go back to the basis of what made Amanda crumble apart, when she told Amanda to go, you know, back over to the school for a retest, she didn't tell Amanda to have sex with Cannon to get a retest, but just based off the way she was dressed and then being Candace's roommate, Cannon had the assumption that we can literally do this all day, folks. But pretty much indirectly, Candace had a role in what happened to Amanda. Maybe not the actual shooting, but in regards to her having a breakdown. So you can also take it in the same matter of, okay, because of Candace's actions, Jeffrey leaped in and actually saved Candace's life. But because of her actions, Jeffrey was put in jail, because, you know, maybe if things were different, if they had called the cops straight up, maybe things would have turned out differently. I do think that in a way, it is possible that David and Charles are orchestrating a plan to bring Candace down. That's what I do think. So with that being said, after finding out the whole situation, I mean, I feel like, you know, Candace stepped on David's toes with the whole, you know, Jeffrey's in jail thing, but things took an even higher level now when David's finding out the truth about what happened in regards of Erica being somebody playing him, and Candace and Veronica has something to do with it, which is where I think the funk is going to, or the other shoe is going to drop, and Charles is actually going to set Candace up for a fall. Now imagine she ends up going to jail for the Quincy Maxwell murder. Damn. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you think David and Charles are working together against Candace? Do you think Oscar had a role in the orchestration of putting these two together to set Candace up for a bigger fall, due to the fact that not only was she willing to let Jeffrey rot in jail for a crime that she committed, not him, but also finding out, or about to get confirmation, that Candace had something to do with Erica being placed into his life, leading to all the events to him being burned. So wow. This is something I never expected. So guys, keep these theories coming. Let me know if you have any thoughts on this, and I will talk to you soon. Congratulations on making it to the end of this video. If you like what you saw, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, as well as leaving your thoughts in the comment section below so we can keep the conversation going. On the left hand side of the screen, you should see a picture of Jeffrey Harrington. You can click on him in order to subscribe, but also hit the bell notification icon. That way you don't miss out on any new content. Also, you should see some videos appearing on the screen as well that I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy if you enjoyed the one you just saw. But also, be sure to follow me on social media such as Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Links to all my social media will be in the description below. And in order to help this channel hit 100,000 subscribers, I'm going to need your help. So make sure to share this video as well as the channel around with all of your friends on your own social media. But once again, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you all in the next video.